Hello, good morning, everyone. Shayla Haller here, mental health clinician. And I just wanted to come in today and share a little bit more about one of my previous posts. And this one was about fear. So, if some of you who watched, I think it was my first video, I think it was my first one on how I talked about the fear acronym, the FEAR. And I just kind of wanted to go back to that because I feel like this could be something that someone wants to hear today as far as encouragement goes and understanding that life is going to cause some hardships, right? Life is going to be difficult. Life is going to be challenging. And I believe, and studies have indicated also out of Brene Brown's lab, if that's what you want to call it, but Brene Brown, you can look her up. She writes the books Dare to Lead and all those different kinds of things and has a leadership program. But her research came back, this was years ago, just something that I remember off the top of my head, that we are all doing the best that we can. And I guess she wanted to prove against that point that no, there are people who are doing less than, or there are people who are not really showing up for themselves. And I'm going to get different results from these studies. And I remember just listening to this podcast, like I said, probably 5 years ago, no, like 8 years ago, on how she was so baffled by her research and the results, where it genuinely came back indicating that we are all doing the best that we can where we're at. And this is actually something that is important for this fear acronym of where you're at in your life. You could be at a crossroad. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of healing stuff here too, as well, of the whole word healing and what that means. And I believe that if there's certain areas in your life that keep coming up for you, they keep just, no matter what you do, they keep coming up. Maybe you'll go 3 months go by and, oh, there it is again. Or even a year goes by or 2 years go by and, oh my gosh, here it is again. Whether it's the same thing that's happening in a different situation or it's the same thing that keeps happening over and over again, I want to challenge you in that is to really take a step back and ask yourself, why does this keep happening? And it's from an outside perspective. So I want to be very clear here. We don't want to do it from a victim mindset of, oh, why does this keep happening to me? I'm always, it's always me. I'm the only one who always has all bad things happen. Like, right? That's not helpful. So none of that type of talk is going to help us on this journey that we're on towards growth. And so really understanding from the situation that you're in, the hardship that you're facing, is a couple things. Reminding yourself, one, this is a season. This is a season of my life where things just seem really, really hard. And I've been able to do hard things before. And even though I don't see what's happening, I'm sure I'm going to look back in a year or two and be so grateful for the grit and the tenacity that I was able to have throughout this hardship, throughout this trial, throughout this tribulation, right? And so I want to be clear here that when we show up for ourselves in an opportunity of crisis, in an opportunity of trials, we are going to be shaped and transformed with how we were able to make sense of it, right? Because a lot of times we can't make sense of anything, right? A cancer diagnosis, losing a loved one, it just doesn't make sense. How do we find peace? How do we find peace in those situations, in those trials and tribulations? And I just shared one thing. And the second thing is, don't compare your hardship to someone else's. So try not to look at it through a lens of, oh, well, this is what I'm going through and that's only what they're going through. That whole victim, right? Like where it's me, poor me, woe is me. And I don't want people to think like, oh my gosh, Sheila, you're so harsh, you're so intense. It's just, this is stuff that I've seen in this office space as a clinician, as a licensed clinician, meeting with hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people a month, working through these things. And depression often manifests off of rumination. So rumination is those really unhelpful thoughts we continue to have around something, and it continues to ruminate, it continues to fester, it continues to grow up here. And that's what's making us sick, by those thoughts flowing down throughout our body, right? And so to combat that, it's the thoughts are not facts. And all of these things that we're facing is going to allow us to find peace when another trial comes. And that's where that resiliency comes in. The resiliency kicks in. All right. We're no longer in survival mode. We're no longer in fight or flight. We are thriving because we have grown and we have no longer plateaued. Right. So here we are, a trial comes, whoop, little road bump. Here we are, trial comes, little road bump. Here we go. A big trial comes, maybe a bigger road bump. And yet we still rise up and we keep going. So going into fear, the fear acronym, we have two choices in life. Whether it doesn't matter, like whatever stage of life you're in, we've got two choices to make when it comes to fear. We can either forget everything and run, or we have the choice to face everything and rise. And when we choose to rise, when we choose to rise out of bed in the morning and continue to face the day, even when we know it's going to be hard, you, my friends, are growing a part of your brain called the mid-cingulate anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Look it up if you want more research on it. I've heard Huberman talk about it, Huberman Lab out of Stanford, and this anterior mid-cingulate cortex where it grows when we do things we don't want to do, and we do it anyways. So if you're going through a hardship, if you're experiencing something that you just can't wrap your head around, I want to speak truth and speak encouragement into those areas in your life. Maybe, just maybe, you are brought back here because there's a lesson to be learned that you missed the first time or the 50th time. Whatever we resist is going to persist. So I want to challenge you, friends, to sit back and to ask yourself, am I actually doing the work? This thing that keeps coming up, why? Is there more work to be done in this area? If the answer is yes, you guys, so much of the stuff, we can't do this on our own. We're not called to do this on our own. Go find help. Look for a counselor today. Look for a therapist and be picky. Choose someone that you think you would mesh well with, because I'll tell you right now, when you go to that intake, you'll already have an understanding about the energy, the vibe in the room of this. Is this someone who I'm going to do well with? And say the type of personality you are and ask them questions of, hey, what's your style? Get curious with the therapist to see if it's going to be a good fit. But I'm going to encourage you that if you've been struggling with something for years and it keeps coming up, maybe some things we're just not called to do on our own. Enlist the support of someone else outside of the family. Get a fresh perspective. That might be the exact thing you need today. All right, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for being here. Bye.